So August seems to be a very interesting month for financial institutions. In August 2017, the Bank of Ghana announced the revocation of licenses of Capital and UT Bank, and for some reason they found their way under GCB. A year later, 7 other banks went under. They became Consolidated Bank. Then on 31st May 2018, the Bank of Ghana announced the culling of the microfinance sector, reducing the number of companies there from over 400 to 100. Over 340 microfinance companies went under. They were entrusted under the care and management of a man who is known as the receiver. Well, he hasn't finished his work with the microfinance. A few days ago in August 2019, the Bank of Ghana struck again, this time 23 companies, 15 of them being savings and loans, and 7 of them being finance houses, also had their licenses revoked. And guess what? The same man has been given the onerous task of receiving. Who is a receiver? What does that mean for those of you who've invested in these companies? How much money has he been able to retrieve from the errant companies? And when will he finish his job? Eric Nana Nipa is my guest on The Point of View. Mr. Nipa, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Bernard, for having me.
Wow. I think you are the most important man in Ghana this week.
Not quite.
Gosh, you are managing 347 companies that have lost their licenses under microfinance, and another 23
That's right.
for savings and loans and finance houses.
That's right.
This must be very onerous. Do you even sleep?
I do, but very little though,
Okay.
I must say. Very onerous, as you rightly mentioned, but doable, given the infrastructure and the support I have. Yeah.
Because this week, some people were asking on my radio show, why is this same Mr. Nipa the guy who's been given the savings and loans when he hasn't finished the microfinance?
That's right.
So let's talk a lot about you.
Yes.
What have you been? You're a partner at PwC Ghana.
That's right. I mean, I am a partner at PwC Ghana. I'm actually the head of advisory.
Okay.
And my business unit is insolvency and investigations. You know, so these are the two things that I do mainly in PwC.
How long have you been working in this area?
I've been working in this area for close to 20 years.
Wow.
You know, so yeah.
So this idea of insolvency and receivership, have you done it somewhere before?
Yes, I have. Indeed, I have. I've done it and worked with the PwC officers in London and in Kenya, where I spent about 2 years in Kenya on secondment, you know. So, and when I was in Kenya, I worked across the patch in East Africa, mainly doing insolvency work and investigations work.
How common are receiverships globally?
Globally, I think there is beginning to be a shift in paradigm. All right. Globally, we are moving away from outright insolvencies, as in with regard to demise. Okay, we are looking more at a rescue culture. Okay, so it is still insolvency, but then in terms of spin and attitude, there is a bit of a change. I must say Ghana is lagging behind a bit, but if you go to current markets like UK, US, and even in East Africa like Kenya, you realize that there are insolvency laws and provisions, you know, make it able for companies to turn around, okay, rather than put them to bed. You know, it is in Ghana that I will say that we don't quite have it yet, because our Insolvency Act, which is the Bodies Corporates Bodies Corporates Act 180, that is well over 50 years old and is subject to revisions now. And I'm happy to say that GARIA, which is the Ghana Association of Restructuring and Insolvency Advisors, that is a think tank group of which I'm a member, and my firm PwC is a foundation member, is looking to change the provisions of the insolvency law to bring it to currency. Yeah. So
that we don't just terminate a company's existence and then say everybody should go and sleep, but we try and get the company to resurrect. Precisely.
I mean, so that we have some technical jargons we use. It's almost like you look at you plot a graph, and then the downward slope, we call it the demise curve. All right. So it's a question of where the company sits in terms of challenges and difficulties on the demise curve. If you are able to put in place mechanisms to identify or create early warning signals. Then, just when the company is exhibiting certain characteristics, you can identify, arrest the situation, and apply a rescue culture or a turnaround solution. But then, if you don't do that, and you allow the company to slide down the demise curve, then it gets to a terminal point. And at that point, the only way is down, and therefore you'd have to liquidate before then maybe receive them in some instances.
We've heard of things like administration, where if they announce that a company is in administration, it's gotten to a point where the state has to appoint people to manage it so it doesn't go down.
That's right.
You're saying that this is the kind of thing that we should see more than simply revocation of licenses and liquidations?
Well, that to the extent possible, because it's driven by liquidity, is driven also by the strength of the balance sheets. All right. You mentioned administration. It's typical of the UK insolvency jurisdiction to have provisions of administration. All right. In the US, what you see is a chapter 8 and chapter 11, where there's a turnaround solution for them. In UK, it is administration. So in Ghana, we don't have any such provision. In South Africa, they do. They have a rescue culture. In Kenya, they now do. Okay, so if we have these measures, if we have these provisions, enabling laws and all, it becomes possible for some companies, looking at some companies that we put to bed, in liquidation scenarios like Bank for Housing and Construction and maybe Ghana Airways, it may have been a different story.
So my question, what have we been doing in the past if we are now bringing our termination laws, for want of a better word, up to speed?
Mm-hmm.
Because as you rightly mentioned, we've had Ghana Airways, we've had Cooperative Bank, we've had Bank for Housing and Construction. What have we been doing? We've been working with an inferior system.
Well, I won't say inferior. I won't describe inferior is quite harsh, but I will say that it's a bit backward. It needs some, not tinkering, but wholesale changes. All right, that's what we should be looking at now.
I see. Were you involved in any of the previous financial institution terminations?
Well, I have been. Yes, I have been.
Wow.
I have been since the year 2000.
Okay.
I worked on the Bank for Housing and Construction and then Cooperative Bank liquidations, the two of them. That's the year 2000 I was.
Okay.
I have been part of the PwC liquidation team that's worked on Ghana Airways. I have been part of the PwC team that worked on FinaTrade. I'm actually a joint receiver on the FinaTrade receivership.
Amazing.
Right? And of course, I mean, with regard to UT and Capital Bank, I am a joint receiver there as well. And of course, the microfinance institutions, and now with this.
Wow, your plate is full.
Very much so.
The UT Capital Bank one is a bit understated because when it happened, I think Vish was also mentioned.
That's right. It's a joint appointment. Vish and myself as joint receivers.
So viewers, this is Vish Ashiago.
Yes.
Who's also a partner.
Yes, Vish is our country senior partner.
Okay.
All right. So Vish is a joint receiver, and I am also a joint receiver on UT and Capital Bank receiverships.
Are you done with that business?
No, we are not done with that business. It's still ongoing.
Wow.
Still quite a lot of work to do, but we are very far advanced.
Because if you started UT Capital Receivership August 2017,
yeah.
2 years this week, and you aren't done with that, and you are dealing with microfinance, which is 2 months this week,
yeah.
and you begin another one.
Yeah.
God, how are you? Is it beneficial to have the same person do all so that if there are trends, it's easier to spot?
I think it has its advantages. One being exactly what you do mention, just so that you are able to spot trends, because there is some commonality. Okay, that is one. Other I need to mention is that this is a very specialized area. Very specialized area. The risk is very high, and you need competent and experienced people to do it. Okay, Unfortunately, in Ghana, we don't have many people practicing in this space, which is what makes PwC quite unique and stand out, and which is what makes clients keep coming to us. Of course, we do quality work as well, and we invest a lot in this service. Okay, I have the benefits and good luck of traveling outside Ghana, out of jurisdiction, to work with colleagues in other sister firms of PwC in other jurisdictions, and I was given the exposure, and I was thrown very deep into some of these assignments. And not only me, quite a number of my colleagues. Okay, so we have really invested in personnel, and therefore we stand out in this market. And I must say, Bernard, that in terms of application, this is part legal and part accounting. All right, it mustn't be confused with auditing. Okay, the mindset is that if it is PwC is an audit firm, and therefore any audit firm can do this job. No, far from the truth.
So I think globally, PwC are the leaders when it comes to this area.
I would say so, because as we speak, and indeed, I think a couple of days ago, PwC London, UK has been appointed to run a huge liquidation of a bank. I mean, insolvency of a bank, actually.
Wow.
So PwC is very well noted for this.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So just to wrap up on this introductory part, how different is it when a financial institution fails from when an ordinary company fails? And I'm not talking just legal. I'm talking finance and implications as well, because it appears to be a big deal if it's a financial institution.
It is a very big deal if it's a financial institution, given the unique role financial institutions play in the economy, and given the very ethos of operation of a financial institution being trust. All right, and therefore all these dynamics play to make a financial institution going down a very big deal compared to a company. It's still also bad. It has its consequential effects and cascading effect as well, as in trade creditors suffer and other stakeholders suffer. But when it comes to a financial institution, I think it's significant.
This is the point of view, and we're having a chat with Mr. Eric Nana Nipa. He has said, I don't know, call it a triple role, for want of a better adjective. So he's a joint receiver for UT Capital Bank, was appointed in August 2017. He's a sole receiver for 347 microfinance and microcredit institutions that were had their licenses revoked in 31st May 2019, and is also now the sole receiver for 23 finance houses and savings and loans companies. So it's a man whose plate is full. He's done this for 2 decades. So since we've given us these 3 things you're doing, I think it would be useful to tell viewers what's the status of UT Capital, because that was the first one. It took a lot of people by surprise. Where are you? Have you finished realizing assets? Have you paid off everybody?
No, we haven't finished. I mean, with UT and Capital Bank, we've come a very long way, and we have been doing a lot of work. With regard to the 2 of them, UT Capital Bank, I would say that in terms of realizations, amounts realized to date, it's in excess of 600 million cedis. Amounts that we have realized to date between the 2 of them, in excess of 600 million. We are confident of doing more, and we could have done by far more. But the challenge we have is that the value of a lot of assets that are subject to realization are all of them, most of them have legal implications. They are in courts. Okay, so you realize that a great chunk of the value of the assets sits in legal suits, and therefore we have to go through judicial processes.
That you have initiated, or that the shareholders have initiated?
That we have initiated. If you take Capital Bank, for instance, we are suing some shareholders, and the claim value is in the region of it's in excess of 750 million cedis.
Wow.
Okay, for Capital Bank alone. And we are in court on that. Okay, if you take the case of UT Bank, again, UT Bank, we are suing related companies associated with UT Bank. We are suing them, as in UT Holdings and others. We are in court. We are suing them, and we are claiming an amount in excess of 100 million.
Wow.
All right. We also have recalcitrant debtors. All right. Some, without mentioning names at this stage, owe UT Bank in excess of 300 million cedis.
Wow.
And we are also in court. And we are in various stages of the legal process. We are at various stages of the legal process. So there is a lot happening, but the drive is more legal.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. Just a quick one. In the case of UT and Capital Bank, the government or the BOG decided to appoint or sort of transfer the assets and liabilities of the remaining assets and liabilities to GCB.
Right.
So whilst you are realizing assets, GCB sort of is handling payments. Is that how it works?
Well, let me explain. It's quite different from what we have with the savings and loans and then with microfinance.
Yes.
Of course, there's a GCB factor as well.
Yes. And
what was done by the Bank of Ghana was for there to be a purchase and assumptions agreement, P&A agreement. That was the arrangement. Purchase and assumptions arrangement, where GCB assumed certain assets and certain liabilities of Capital Bank and UT Bank. All right. They were subsumed into GCB, and governments worked out a funding arrangement, a payment arrangement by way of a bond in favor of GCB. All right. So it isn't all the assets, but it's some assets and liabilities within the framework of a purchase and assumptions agreement, P&A. All right. So that is how GCB comes into the equation. But what actually happened was that those, and the emphasis is on certain, all right, the quite unattractive resources of these two banks were left to Visha Shiago and myself, joint receivers, to manage and to realize and to extract value for the benefit of other creditors.
So you are doing the dirty work.
Well,
so GCB took the easier assets, and of course, because they are a bank, they have some liquidity.
Yeah.
They can deal with some of the depositors.
That's right.
And take them over as their customers.
That's
and then you deal with the hard assets that have to now be auctioned through whatever.
Precisely, which is an unfortunate situation. But what they did is, I think, government took a very strategic macro view. That is Bank of Ghana. Bank of Ghana was very concerned about the systemic implications of the action and of receivership. And therefore, the key thing was to ensure financial stability and trust, all right, showing up confidence. And therefore, they sought to take out the depositors and then assure them of continuity in terms of banking relationship and business. All right, so that was the reason why we had this P&A agreement. It didn't only apply to GCB, UT, and Capital Bank. But of course, we, PwC, through my senior colleague, Visha Shiago, is a sole receiver for Heritage Bank and Premium Bank. Okay, and these two also have a similar type of arrangement where we have this purchase and assumptions arrangements where the certain assets and liabilities, mainly depositors, are moved across to CBG.
Consolidated.
Yes, consolidated, yeah.
Amazing. So we always distinguish between depositors and then other creditors. Fair enough. So we've been talking to Mr. Eric Nipa, who is the joint receiver for UT Capital and so receiver for the microfinance as well as the savings and loans. So far, he's given us a good background on what he's done with the UT Capital Bank issue and also Premium and Heritage Bank. When we come back, he will tell us more about the second assignment, which he was given on 31st May this year, 347 microfinance and microlending institutions. And then later on, he will tell us how he's going to face the new assignment of 23 savings and loans and finance houses. This is the point of view. Stay with us. Welcome back to the point of view. Today we're talking to the receiver. He's a big man. He's received 4 banks and he's not finished. He has been given 347 microfinance and 23 savings and loans and finance houses. Eric Nipa is our guest. So far, we learned a couple of things. He's been doing this job for at least 2 decades. He's been part of the Ghana Airways and also Bank for Housing. So he has a lot of experience. He's been working on the UT Capital One, realized 600 million cedis so far. So if you are owed by those 2 banks, you know where to go for your money. Well, on 31st May this year, he was given the onerous task of receiving wound down 347 microfinance institutions. Well, that press release also mentioned microcredit institutions, and I think 30 or so. So clarify, is it 347 microfinance or 347 microfinance and some other companies?
Thank you very much, Bernard. Where my mandate is concerned as a receiver, it is 347 microfinance companies, 347 of them. Okay. We also have microcredit institutions, and those microcredit institutions are subject to official liquidation. So they have been passed to the Registrar of Companies, Mrs. Jemima Wari, who has placed these companies into official liquidation and is going about her business. Let me explain the basic difference. The basic difference is how come both types of financial institutions or segments of the financial sector institutions are in together is that with the microcredit institutions, they are not deposit taken, and therefore the Operating Act 930 cannot apply to them. Okay, cannot apply to them. The Operating Act is Act 930, which is the Bank and Specialized Taking Deposits Institutions Act. Because the microcredits, almost like money lenders and all, do not take deposits, they do not therefore fall under the ambit of the Act, that is Act 930, although they are regulated by the Bank of Ghana. Okay, so on the strength of that technical difference, the central bank has passed those accounts on to the Registrar of Companies, and she is winding them down under a separate provision of the law, which is Act 180. That's official. I mean, the Bodies Corporates Act 180. That's what she's doing. Of course, PwC has a role over there, and we are providing her with supports, and we come in also as her consultants. We go way back with the Registrar of Companies. We've been working with them since, close to the 2 decades now. And therefore, when this assignment came her way, given her capacity constraints and our ability to deliver, she very quickly reached out to us. And of course, we've been there to work with her, and we've been working closely with her on that.
When it came to the banks and the savings and loans, the BOG told us exactly what each of them had done wrong. For the 347 microfinance, they didn't do that.
I see.
So we just know generally that they are insolvent. Some are ceased operation. Are you able to tell us what happened? Because at least before they give you the patient to heal or to do corona, whatever, you need to tell us. So you're like a corona.
Well,
yeah.
Interesting you say. I mean, before I was appointed, BOG had done extensive work and had identified some ills. All right, and of course we are not curable, and it got to a terminal stage, and it was passed on to me. One of the key things I do whenever patients of this nature, so to speak, are handed over to me, is to undertake a complete diagnosis, a complete examination. So we on our own are doing that, and that is part of our situation assessment of these companies. We conduct a situation assessment of these companies to ascertain the state of affairs, the state of play, as at the date of receivership. We do that with the aim of identifying, ascertaining what assets they have, types of these assets, location of these assets, conditions of these assets, and of course the value, potential value of these assets. We also do that to establish the total liability base of these companies, and who the creditors are, what securities there may be over assets of the company, and so on and so forth. Quite detailed, a very extensive exercise, in the course of which, and as a byproduct, we are able to identify what caused the condition or conditions of the companies. And indeed, we have done that, and we realize that the story isn't any different from what we examined and identified in the case of UT, in the case of Capital Bank, in the case of Heritage Bank, in the case of Premium Bank. All right. It appears that there is a common thread, quite pathetic, but I mean almost the same issues. The underlying or the key points being that these companies are insolvent. Of course, with the exception of Heritage Bank, where they became, theirs was due to, I mean, their situation was due to some regulatory breaches and all. But largely, these companies are insolvent. And what does it mean? What it means in terms of, within the context of the Act, is that a company is insolvent when you consider three scenarios. All right. Mainly two, but we can extend to three. Insolvent on a balance sheet basis, where the liabilities of the company exceed the assets. Okay, then you become insolvent on a balance sheet basis. Okay, then the other insolvency scenario is has to do with liquidity, when you are not able to meet your obligations as and when they arise. That can push you into insolvency. So, for example, if you have these banks and these microfinance institutions where depositors or investors make placements, and then it turns out that they have maturity profiles, dates and all, and they crystallize, and they want to access their funds and they are not being given to them. That's, on the strength of that alone, can trigger moves towards insolvency. All right. So very clearly, that is the second consideration. The third, which is applied to the two, is, and that is quite unique to Act 930. These two apply to Act 180 in terms of insolvency. But when it comes to Act 930, there's a third, where Bank of Ghana as regulator, okay, is also given the power, this is prospective, if they assess that within 60 days, the company could fall on either one or two scenarios.
Okay.
Bank of Ghana wouldn't wait for the 60 days. They can move and then place their company into receivership. Wow. And that, I should say, is based out of experience, upon experience. We've had legacy situations where banks have collapsed, and it is only when they have collapsed that the central bank is moved, where, I mean, nothing hardly can be done. But this Bank of Ghana, through various revisions of the law, the Banking Act, has been given this power through the creation of this provision of the law to give them this prospective authority.
So that they can look at 60 days ahead. If you will be balance sheet insolvent,
yes,
or liquidity insolvent,
yes,
they will close
they will
you
just
down.
close it. They can move. Yes.
Amazing. But you haven't said to me the behaviors that led to this, or that
well,
your remedy.
that becomes the overall outcome generally. So we ask ourselves, what then causes these insolvency situations, and what have we seen? I mean, number one, you come across a lot of creative accounting under statements and all of them. Okay.
Creative accounting.
Yes, you come across a lot of
creativity is a good thing. So well, why is creative accounting a bad thing?
Creativity can also be negative.
In accounting?
If it's adverse. You know, if for example, the value of an asset is 10 cedis, and then you go and exaggerate it and you say it's 50 cedis.
You creatively find a way of making it 50
Precisely,
cedis.
you creatively find a way of making it 50. Or if it is recorded as 50 and has to be downgraded to 10, okay, because of the asset's quality deficiency, say, you creatively find a way of maintaining
So
it
that
at
misrepresents
50.
the financial position.
Precisely, and the financial statement is a public document based on which sensitive decisions are taken, and that is what investors rely on to make investment decisions. And therefore, if you mislead them, it has repercussions. So you have situations like that.
So creative accounting was one.
Creative accounting.
What about the issue of use of depositors' funds for unauthorized and possibly related party activities?
That was also a significant one and has been a significant one in the case of some of them. Some of them, by the very nature of the way they have been structured, you realize that they were diverting funds from banks and using them for their own businesses. Some of them were doing that. And some of them also used them for related party activities. So it was almost like sweeping away hard-earned depositor funds into your own business and adventure and endeavor.
Why was that so prevalent? It seems to have happened in the banks, microfinance, and also savings and loans. It seems to be very common.
Yes, it is actually, and it is, and I do believe that this is symptomatic of how people conduct business generally. I don't want to generalize, but this is a feature, an unfortunate feature that we have come across. Sometimes, and wearing the forensics hat gives me the feeling or the belief that people go in anticipating the end from the beginning.
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
And therefore working all these structures and systems
to deliberately siphon money into related.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
normal practice.
Well, it's not normal practice, but you realize that some people fraudulently do that.
Wow.
Some people fraudulently do that.
But is it not, I mean, to be a director of a bank or to be director of a financial institution, should you not know that related party transactions could put you in a conflict of interest situation? Isn't this basic knowledge?
It is basic knowledge. It is basic knowledge, but they still do them. It is basic knowledge, and it is something that even within the accounting fraternity, there are strict standards, almost like disclosure requirements and all. But they hide them, and then unfortunately, they use these avenues to perpetrate fraud.
Okay, so since 31st May 2019, for the 347 companies, how many people have you paid? How much value of assets have you realized? What have you done so far?
Well, what we've done is that since the 31st of May, we have received claim forms, filled claim forms in the region of 152,000 in number.
152,000 forms
that we have
representing
received.
individuals and entities.
Both individuals.
Wow.
And 152,000 in terms of number. And then in terms of value combined, it's in the region of 1.4 billion cedis. All right?
Wow.
In the region of 1.4 billion cedis in value that we have received. I mean, the worth of these claims. We have validated, all right? And by validation, what we've been doing is to reconcile these claims to the source documents of the company to establish validity, to establish correctness of quantum of claim and all of them. We have, and it's quite laborious, and we've established, since May, I would say that we have validated out of the 152,000 in number, we have validated about 80,000 in number.
That's in just 2 months.
Yes.
The whole of June,
yes,
the whole of
that's
July.
right. 80,000
out of 152,000.
Yes. And then of the 80,000 in terms of value, okay, if you have to work out the value of these 80,000 claims, it comes to in the region of 600 million cedis.
Ooh.
All right, 600 million cedis we have validated. So there's been a lot of work in there, and that's what we keep doing.
How much did government give you to cater for affected depositors in the 347 microfinance?
Well, governments voted in the region of 900 million cedis.
Wow.
That's what government did.
900 million cedis.
In the region of 900
Then
million
it's simple.
cedis.
You have 900 million.
Yes.
And you've realized you've validated claims worth 600 million. So you can pay all the 600 million and then you have 300 million left coolly sitting waiting for you.
Well, that is not the finished picture, I would say, because the 152,000 claimants, right, are juxtaposed against an original estimate of about 1 million in number. Okay. About 1 million in number in terms of the number of claimants anticipated. All right. So
you are saying you expected 1 million entities.
Yes, we expected 1 million claimants, both individuals.
Wow.
Both individuals and corporates to submit.
So the 150,000 is just less than 20%.
Exactly. That is what has happened. All right. So there is still so much work to be done, but of course, almost 3 months down the line, if 152,000 out of 1 million have submitted claims, then it gives an idea that the 1 million may not be reached, because the usual response or reaction of the individual is to rush just when there's commencement, So we are working with 150 for now, but of course, still receiving, and the statistics I give you, this is as of last week, and we continue to update. So I'm sure that there'll be further.
So you have 152,000 claimants valued at 1.4 billion cedis.
Yeah.
You validated 80,000 valued at 600,000.
600 million.
600 million, forgive me. But how much have you paid?
In terms of payments, right, and as I said, and I in answering your question, I need to put it in context. All right. In terms, we have validated 600 million. That's what I say. 600 million we have validated. But given the quantum of votes received from governments, all right, which is 900 million, okay, having gone in there and commenced our work in terms of assessment of records and all, we had to take or make a strategic decision. All right. We realized that the financial records cannot be relied upon as such. All right. Because there are so many revelations, key being that deposits have been understated in terms of number and value, in not across board, but in some cases. Deposits have been understated. And how come they have been understated by some of these MFIs or microfinance institutions is that there are prudential requirements of how much a microfinance institution should be taken. All right, there are prudential requirements, but a great many of them exceeded that. All right, and because they exceeded that, what they decided to do was not to report. Okay. All right, so it was almost like they kept them aside. It wasn't part of official records and documentation. And it was only when we went in, when we started our examination and were receiving claim forms, that we realized that they were far more than what had been reported. Of course, some of them even dealt in Forex. Yes, we shouldn't have.
Microfinance
yes,
companies.
Some of them did.
And they hid it from the BOG.
Yes, and they hid it from the BOG. And it was difficult, of course, for a BOG would hardly be able to identify that. We have been able to do that because we are very much embedded in the operations of these companies. We have taken control over these companies. We are in possession of the records. We have a IT complement and personnel who disabled the servers and did backups and analyzed the records. Okay, interacting with the personnel who have been retained and receiving claims from...
So you have 3 ways of checking.
Exactly. We have 3 ways of checking and receiving claims from depositors, some with some with certificates, investment certificates,
Wow.
which have not been captured on the records, of the company. Give us an indication that we must hasten
slowly
with care.
in payment.
Precisely.
Because the assumption that BOG had in even giving that 900 million could be faulty.
It could be through no fault of theirs, but through improper reporting and accounting. It could be. Wow. So what we deliberately have done, right? It's the balance between it's a balance between speed of payments
and efficiency
and efficiency and prudence. All right. So based on a reasonable assessment, we say, fine. What we can do initially is, in terms of payment, let's establish a cap of 10,000. All right. Let there be a cap of 10,000 in terms of depositor payments. As we continue to through and as we continue to establish, actually the actual quantum, the real quantum of the depositor position that should be reported.
Wow.
And therefore we have done that again because we realized that when we assumed control, when we took over, there was such heat and pressure. And for us to say that we're going to do a complete forensic exercise,
it will take too long.
Will take too long.
On the basis of that revelation, we'll take another break. I think we need a bit of water because this is serious. Wow. So there could be deeper issues and air. When we come back, we'll wrap up with Mr. Eric Nipa. Nana Nipa. He's a big man. He's the receiver. We haven't even spoken about savings and loans and finance houses, and yet the show is revealing a lot of things. We are happy to see you commenting. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. We're learning so much with Eric Nipa. Unbelievable information. So they were expecting 1 million claims. So 552,000 have been received. They've worked on 80,000, and there's a lot of money, but they are hastening slowly with payment because they feel that the amounts may be larger. Just a quick question. Some people want to know what formula you are using to decide which institutions to pay first, because you have 347 companies, right? So are you working in alphabetical order? Or are you working geographically? How are you? Or are you working on the basis of claims sent?
We are working on the basis of claims sent and validated. All right, so not in any order. All right, but it's mainly influenced by how ship-shape your records are. All right, so for companies that have relatively effective systems and processes and that have sufficient documentation and who have people we can seek clarification from, it gets, and of course who have personnel, retained staff and management who are cooperating, it becomes very easy for us to validate and then seek to pay. But where you have a company which has ceased operations, and we have quite a number of them, we had about 155 of them who have ceased operations, all right, and whose management cannot be located, then it becomes a big problem in terms of validation, because we would need to locate the old management. We of course, what we have done is to secure these offices. We've logged them, all right, and what we are doing in a great many cases with success is being able to locate the old management, and some of them have come and have shown us where the books and records are. In some cases, not even in their old offices, but even in their rooms, in their homes and other places. So we've been able to retrieve them, and we are trawling through and all of them. So it depends actually upon the state of the records and how very quickly we can validate, because the mantra is no validation, no pay.
No validation, no pay.
No, we can't do that.
So when I asked you how much you had paid, you said you hadn't paid even up to 90 million yet.
Let me explain that, if I was coming to that. In terms of, we say that we have validated we have validated 600 million in terms of value. Okay, that is the whole amount we have validated. But of this 600 million, we are not paying everything and everybody, not now, at least not now. So out of that, we are setting a cap of up to 10,000 cedis. So if you apply that cap to the 600 million, what that means is, of the 600 million validated, in terms of up to 10,000 potential receipts or payments, you have 90 million. So that is where the 90 million is coming from. So there is 90 million to pay. Okay. And unfortunately for us, I'll say this has been one of the challenges. This area has been one of the challenges in terms of speed of payments. Out of the 90 million, I'll say that we have paid, or we are processing to pay, and we have paid almost about 35%. You know, so it's not been as positive
it's
as
very slow.
It is slow. We would admit that, and feedback we've gotten, particularly from your program, has been very helpful. You know, because the feedback we got from the phone-ins really jolted us and made us sit up, and we introspected, and we engaged with CBG, our partner bank, and we have examined the whole process. You see, so we are very confident that this week there will be a significant difference for the better. There will be more payments coming up. You know, we are engaging with CBG to see whether it is possible for them to extend opening and processing hours, you know, operating hours, and even including weekends, just so that we can satisfy.
So payments are going to ramp up in the coming weeks.
In the coming weeks,
actually. For the microfinance people.
For the microfinance.
Just a final point on microfinance. You mentioned earlier on the radio interview that about 20 companies had said that they were willing to pay claims to depositors.
That's right.
Irrespective of what you find.
That's right.
Can you confirm that?
That's right, Bernard. I think for us, it's one of the major highlights. All right, that we have about 20 companies, microfinance institutions, whose licenses have been revoked. About 20 of them have approached us. You know, we've been engaging with them, and they have indicated that they do not want any government payments or handouts. That they are willing and able to pay all their depositors 100%, and not just their depositors, but their entire creditor population.
Wow.
You know, so it is good news indeed. And what we have done with them was to sit with them and establish the total liability position. That's what we did to them, just so that we are all on the same page as to the quantum of exposure, the total quantum that they have. You know, we have done that. What we've also done is to issue a statement of undertaking for them to execute, showing that indeed.
Can you name these 20?
I will keep it confidential for now.
Until you are through with that process.
Not until I'm through, even before I'm through with the process, but I need to discuss further with them and with my principals.
So that everybody's clear how it's going to be
Precisely.
done. So people don't rush there and go and cause confusion.
Exactly, that is it. Because when we've closed out on this statement of undertaking execution, the next step I'm going to do will be to start engaging with the customers in a town hall meeting fashion, to let them know that this is the intention, these are the timelines, and these are the pay points.
So we're going to have a town hall meeting.
We will have it. Yeah, we will have it.
Let's come to the final savings and loans. So this week you've been given a new responsibility. 23 companies. As I'm speaking to you, there were reports that at one of the companies, Women's World Banking, people had massed up looking for their money. It seems as if there isn't enough information. So tell us in a nutshell, what are you going to be doing within the next, 30 days for the savings and loans customers and finance house customers?
Yeah, that's right, Bernard. I picked this up actually. I picked it up on your 12 o'clock news, the Women's World Banking in Kumasi.
And also in Medina.
And also in Medina, actually. And then First Allied also. There was this rush. And I picked up the sentiments of the depositors, mainly to do with information flow, not knowing what is going on. And permit me to use this platform to assure them that we are working assiduously and to set out and lay out what we are doing and going to do in the next 2 to 3 months. I have representatives on the ground, all right, deployed across the 500 or so branches of the 23
Service and loans
finance houses. We have our men deployed, and they have claim forms, what we call proof of debt forms, POD forms. They have them available. I'm urging these customers to approach them, pick the forms, fill these forms, attach the necessary documentation, and return them to the places where they pick those forms. My reps will very quickly validate. Okay, customers have up to the 12th of September to submit these forms, filled with adequate supporting documentation, up to the 12th of September. My reps will be validating, and we've given ourselves, all things considered, to the 11th of October, close to 30 days. To the 11th of October, documentation and others and cooperation permitting, for us to have validated these claims that we have received. Okay, having validated the claims that we received, we will communicate to the depositors the status. Having done that, then we move into paying position, and then we will pay. But let me mention, Bernard, I think it's very important that we all appreciate this, that when we talk of payments, this conversation has been about funds being provided by government, the 900 million. That is one pot of funding, all right? But the other one, which is also very significant, if not more significant, has to do with asset realizations. Okay, asset realizations, we secure the assets, we realize the assets, and the process thereof is what we use to pay off depositors and other creditors in order of ranking. So assets, I mean, that stream of discussion is usually something that we need to advert people's minds to, that it isn't only about the government's money.
So in terms of savings and loans and micro and finance houses, has the money government giving you, is it more than the expected realizable assets?
Well, at this point, I know that government is going to make provision to provide funds for us. I don't.
How much is government giving you?
I don't know the quantum yet. I have a meeting with my principals to discuss that in terms of quantum and terms and timing of release and all of them. So
wow.
I'm not able, but I do believe that within a day or two, all these things should.
What was the size of the hole? There were different reports. I remember there was a finance report that there was the size of the savings and loans and finance house was 6.5 billion. Somebody also did a calculation and said it's about 2.5 billion cedis. What figure are you working with?
Well, at this point, so many figures being thrown up in the air. We have only just moved in, so I'm sure that come Friday we would have a certain idea of the figure, and of course also in engaging with Bank of Ghana between now and Wednesday, Thursday, we should have an idea of their figure. And then, of course, moving on, we will validate.
But if the microfinance is anything to learn from, you had 900 million from government versus how much you feel you would realize. Government will definitely have to give more than the realizable. Or it's a different scenario.
Well, it's a different scenario altogether.
Okay.
I mean, government isn't bound, government is not compelled.
Okay.
It is a strategic decision that government is taking to do this. Okay, just so that it mitigates the systemic effect it will have on the economy, you know. So it is government to do that, and it is entirely at the benevolence of government to determine as to quantum and
how has the asset realization been? There have been a few voices on air. We've heard some people have even sent WhatsApp messages of former owners saying they can't come for my car, they can't come for these things because I earned them before I started the company. Whereas we also know that you can lift the veil of incorporation and bring in the principals. So how easy or difficult has it been realizing assets for the microfinance, for example?
Well, I think that there are great difficulties, and why so is the personal attachment of these operators to the business. All right, they've always been operating, a lot of them, quite a number of them, and which is why corporate governance has been non-existent in some cases. They've been operating in a manner to suggest that they are running a sole trader business, type of business. So it is quite difficult for them to dissociate self and person from business. And that's how they've done it. And which is why, in a sense, it's brought them to where they are, partly so. Okay, so, of course, there have been these challenges. And when we moved in to secure the assets, we had to take off some of the vehicles and all of them from them. A lot of them did resist, but ultimately, with the support of the state institutions like National Security and the Ghana Police, we have been able to wrestle quite a number of them. Those that continue to pose problems infringe on Act 930, and it is our intention to deal with them.
We will be wishing you well and willing you on. We've been speaking to Eric Nipa. He's the joint receiver for UT Capital Bank and also receiver for Premium and Heritage Bank. He's the sole receiver for the 347 microfinance institutions. He's been doing that job since 31st May this year. And this week, he was given additional responsibility, 23 savings and loans and micro and finance houses. And he says, from now till September 12th, go for the forms if you are if the company owes you within that space. And in a month after that, they would know exactly how to proceed. Watch Citi TV for more updates on this. My name is Bernard Abler. Thank you, Eric, for being on the show. And thank you, viewers, for staying with us. We'll see you next time. Bye.